Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Topic UFO. My name is Rick Schooler, and I will be your host for the next 30 to 40 minutes. Tonight, we have probably one of the hardest working men in ufology. He's been on the show before. I'm sure if you've been into ufology for at least a year or more, you know who this person is. You've seen him on television. You've read his books, what have you. Tonight, we're going to be speaking to Mr. John Ventre. And John is a combination of a UFO researcher, an author, a lecturer, a conference host. And then on top of all of that, he is the state director for MUFON in several state areas, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and Rhode Island. So he's got a huge area up there that he's involved with. And you may have seen him recently on his latest television endeavor, the Hangar 1 series on the History Channel. I haven't got to speak to John about this particular series. The last time he was here, I believe they were still in contract negotiations and just trying to tie up the loose ends. So I have a few questions about the show. I really like the show, personally. On top of that, he's got a new book out entitled An Alternative History of Mankind. And I don't know a lot about the book. I believe it's just come out recently. And we'll be talking to him about that as well. So just a ton of different things we'll be talking to him about tonight. So don't go away. It'll be an interesting conversation for sure. We'll be right back after this quick message.
Looks like a suitcase. Oh, feels like it's full of bricks. Well, actually, it's a 1925 RCA portable radio. That is, if you can call something that weighs 57 pounds portable. It sounds pretty good, too. If you rig up this aerial, and remember to take along these earphones. Cost? Only $195. Well, in 29 years, RCA Victor has brought portables a long way. Nowadays, wherever you are, you can enjoy your favorite radio programs on a wonderful new RCA Victor portable like this Super Personal. It's no larger than a book, no heavier than a lady's handbag, so it's easy to take anywhere. The Super Personal is easy on batteries, too. This battery lifesaver switch can add 30% to the life of your batteries by letting them loaf in strong signal areas. Set the Super Personal down by the ironing board and whistle while you work. It makes a perfect second radio anywhere around the house. Let the children use one in their room, or keep one in your own bedroom. And remember, the Super Personal is just one of a wide assortment of fine, dependable RCA Victor portables designed to fit your budget and your needs. So see the pick of the portables by RCA Victor, world leader in radio.
Welcome back, everyone. Joining us at this time is our guest for the evening, Mr. John Ventre. Mr. Ventre, you out there, sir?
Yes, I am.
How are you tonight, John?
Good. The weather turned really cold here. It was 72 days ago. It's like 30 right now.
You join the club. Here in Nashville, we had the same thing. We actually had snow flurries today. It didn't stick, but my God, that cold front coming down from Canada. I think you folks are planning on getting even colder this weekend.
Yeah, it's supposed to go down to 18, I think, in two nights from now.
Great. Well, welcome to winter. So John, of course, the big reason I wanted to have you on tonight was to talk about your new book, An Alternative History of Mankind. But if you don't mind, I'd like to talk to you about a couple other things before we go to the book.
Okay.
you know, you have your fingers in so many UFO pies. I really, I must hand it to you, being involved in so much. The latest television show that I know about was the Hangar One series that on the History Channel. And the last time you were here, John, you were just finishing up contract talks or something, and the show was has not been released yet. But one thing I've noticed, it seems like each new UFO show that comes out, the production values are just getting better and better, and the cinematography is beautiful, and you know, this Hangar One is a classic example, just beautifully done show. What's been your experience personally doing that show? I mean, have you noticed that how well these new shows are being produced?
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of television and movies are much better than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. You know, I got 600 DVDs inside in my home theater, and I'm watching some of the older ones, and I'm saying, oh, this movie stinks. This one's not that good. But then you get to one that's made in the last few years, and they're just so good the way they do them.
Yeah, well, part of that's, you know, the technology, but I think they're dedicating more time to these UFO shows. You remember the ones, back in the early 80s, like on the Fox network, it was basically just a host standing on stage showing video clips or something. But, the production values they're putting into these reenactments are just fantastic.
Do you remember the old Disney UFO show that was done about 20 years ago when they opened up Space Mountain?
Yeah, just slightly.
Okay. Well, what I just found out at the MUFON Symposium, which I hosted in Cherry Hill, New Jersey for MUFON, was that our producer of Hangar One was the guy that made that TV special for Disney on UFOs. So and plus this guy, he not only worked for Disney, I think he started out in MTV with music videos. So that's why this show was so good. The producer is into it.
Well, I tell you, kudos to that guy because, like I said, the cinematography is just really nice. I really love the way they do it. Now, is Hangar One still in production, or has it made its run?
No, it got renewed for season 2. They increased it from 8 episodes to 12, and I filmed 9 of the 12 episodes. Last season I was in all 8. This time 9 out of 12, and it's been renewed. They doubled the size of the cast. I think we had 9 people in season 1. We have 18 now in season 2, and you're going to see more MUFON investigators in it. We added 4 or 5 people from the organization.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that because on your website, I believe, when it talks about Hangar One, it says it's MUFON based. What exactly does that mean? MUFON based.
Well, the show is based on the 70,000 cases that we have. So it's based on real investigations, real files that we have. When you think about a lot of the other shows out there, a lot of them are based on the internet. There is no real witness or real investigator involved with the show, yet they produce a show. This show is the Hangar One is the actual building they show. That's where it's housed, and these are real UFO files. So personally, I think this is really the only real UFO show out there.
Wow, that is amazing. Now, you kind of caught me by surprise because you had mentioned to me just prior to starting tonight's show that you're actually doing a couple other shows besides Hangar One right now. Is that right?
It's amazing how things come together. The producer for Hangar One saw me on the Anderson Cooper show 2.5 years ago.
Right.
That's how I got in Hangar One. He said, I got to have you, in Hangar One. So I said, fine. So then also Close Encounters on Discovery Science for their second season. I wasn't in season 1, but I filmed 3 episodes for season 2. And we're already talking about 2 or 3 more episodes for season 3 that are all based in Pennsylvania. So I got that show going too. And then locally, our public TV station, PCTV in Pittsburgh Community Television, said to me, do you want to do a half-hour monthly show on public TV? I mean, nobody gets paid. I go into Pittsburgh, we do it. But the cool thing is I write it, I host it, I provide the material, whatever it is on the show, I create it. They just film it and produce it. So it's cool. I can do anything I want with this show, and I'm in the credits as the writer and host. So we've done 6 episodes. We're going to do 2 more December 3rd, and we'll have 8 done. I may just sit out a couple of months during the winter and get back into it come April or May, because it snows here in Pittsburgh.
Absolutely. Well, again, John, I just don't know where you get your energy to do all this stuff. I'd mentioned to the viewers during the opening segment that on top of all of this television stuff, the book writing, the speaking, you're still the state director for MUFON for a large portion of the Northeast too, right?
Yeah, I got 6 states. We hold 3 conferences here in Pennsylvania: Pittsburgh, Philly, and Erie. We just did the Pittsburgh conference Saturday, and what a great conference. We had Daryl Sims, Nick Redfern, 300 people attended. It went great. So while I'm there, there's another guy with local Pittsburgh television saying he wants to come out with a weekly UFO news show that will air on television here in the Pittsburgh market, and he wants me to be the host. So I said, fine, put it together. We'll do that one too. But again, I would give them all the material for that and come up with the show every week. Today I got an offer to host a radio show, and I said, you know what? I got 3, possibly 4 TV shows going on. I do, shows like yours, 8, 10 times a year. So I said, I can't host a radio show too. I mean, I wrote 3 books in the last 3 years. I write articles for the Journal and other magazines. I said, I told my girlfriend, I don't want UFOs to dominate my life. I want to pull back from this, but I keep getting
I think
I keep getting pulled in every time I want to pull back.
I think they've already got you, John. I really do. I think it's already got you. Well, listen, before we get to the book, one more question. Just at the MUFON level, has there been any real pertinent sightings up there in the Northeast over the last several months or year?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's a weird thing. The New England area, I have Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, Rhode Island. They get the weirdest cases. And I am convinced that a lot of their cases are actually paranormal, demonic stuff. Some of the descriptions are incredible, but here in Pittsburgh, and Pennsylvania, and Delaware, my other 2 states, we have 3 cases in particular recently that I find really interesting. They all involve these orbs that are seen in the sky, some, white, red, orange, whatever colors that they are. And they're 3 real good cases. One case is seen by, there was a couple of witnesses, they filmed it, but it's seen by 2 police officers. They called the police showed up, it was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and they're standing there for a half hour looking at the sky saying, this is a UFO. 2 police officers. Then we had a case over in the eastern, over by Philly, actually closer to Allentown. And this case, we got these orbs in the sky. We're able to get radar on it. The radar shows the different objects in the sky the UFOs were covering a 900 by 150 foot area, multiple UFOs. And the cool thing is, there's a plane flying right into them, and those that make a hard left. We've got some information on on that plane. We need to track down the pilot to ask him, what did you see? Why did you make a hard left as you approach these UFOs? So that's the second case. The third case may be the best of them all. We not only have it on video, we have radar, and we don't only have radar, we have trace evidence. It was a group of UFOs. They were orbs. They started to leave. They were flying away. One kind of like laid behind and sputtered. It discharged an object on fire.
Oh my God.
They recovered it. They recovered it. So we have this object that came out of the craft. Now, I don't know if this craft is our military's, a black project. It's definitely unidentified. I don't know if it's extraterrestrial, but it was a piece of insulation. And, we sent it to Phyllis Budinger in Ohio, Frontier Labs. You probably know Phyllis. She did our famous Bucks County case in 2008. She helped with the analysis on that too. But she says it's not only insulation. The insulation was coated in a chemical that's used for waterproofing. And she says if it's ours, we only just came out with this about a year and a half ago. She was a little surprised that would already be in planes commercially used, let's say, or privately used. But she says, so this is something used in an energy storage area, an engine room. It caught fire, they discharged it, and then the object was able to fly away. So we got it, we've had it analyzed, and we're getting the radar analyzed. So this is three. And the funny thing is, when you look at the video on all three cases, they all look the same. You see multiple lights in the sky. They're orbs. They look white to me on the video, but some of the people say they're orange in color. And you wouldn't know one video from the other. But three cases. I think what our conclusion is going to be, what I'm leaning towards, is that these orbs we're seeing in the sky are probably our militaries. And we got a piece of a black project, and this is probably ours, like the X-47B or something that we're picking up.
Now, say that again, because you were breaking it up a little bit. The thing, or the material that got discharged was a piece of what?
Insulation.
Insulation with some type of waterproofing on it?
Yeah, it's fiberglass insulation, and it was coated with a chemical for waterproofing. So it's insulation and it's waterproofed. And that's something that we didn't start using or created until about a year and a half ago. So I don't know if it came out of our craft, an Air Force craft, or this is an extraterrestrial craft, but they had some sort of engine room trouble, and it was a fire, and they discharged it, and it was recovered by the witness.
Wow.
So, good case. This has more evidence than the Bucks County case that, there was 4 or 5 TV shows done on that, plus Anderson Cooper.
Well, that's my one of my favorite all-time episodes, was the Bucks County flap. Just a great episode, John. So, and these orb reports that you're talking about, these things just happened over the last year, huh?
Well, we've always had them. Over here in Pennsylvania, we seem to be getting more and more cases of these orbs being seen. And, I go back to 2 in particular. Do you remember Captain Ruppelt? And he gave, back in the 50s, he gave some evidence, some film evidence to United Artists, and they made a movie on UFOs. It's one of the first ones. But in the movie, they show, if you remember 20 years ago, they used to call them a string of pearls. They used to be seen over Mexico, South Korea, and you see 20, 30 of these white orbs in the sky. They refer to them as a string of pearls. And the film, I don't know if it was the Tremonton or the Montana film from Project Blue Book in the 50s, looked just like that. And these orbs that we're seeing now look just like that. So, it's the same thing 60 years later. So maybe I'm wrong saying it's our technology. Maybe it's not, because we've been seeing this for the last 60 years, if not longer.
Wow. Crazy stuff. Well, I tell you, it sounds like you've got plenty to keep you extremely busy, but it seems like you've found some extra time to write this new book entitled An Alternative History of Mankind. Now, John, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you've been into this alternate history thing for a while prior to writing this book, right? Because I thought I've heard you talk about this before.
Yeah, I'm not your typical ufologist. I was not interested in UFOs as a kid. I didn't get involved in this until I was almost 40 years old, 39 years old. And it was really because I was writing a sci-fi book on the Mayan calendar and end time prophecies. And you probably remember that from 6 years ago, I wrote 12/21, 2012, a prophecy, but it was a sci-fi story. It was a good story. And, but I learned a lot about cultures, and that's what got me into UFOs, a lot of this ancient history stuff. But that's not what this is. What I did with this book is, I was actually watching it's a couple of things influenced me. I was watching History Channel, and they had a show on the story of mankind, or the story of us. And, I was watching it. It was a series. And I said, wouldn't it be so cool if somebody did the alternative story, or the alternative history of us? So I got the title, and then I come across this picture of a gray. He's kind of like, he's got kind of a purplish hue to him. Lots similar to this guy behind me, but he's holding a human skull like a thinker, So I got the picture for my cover. I contacted the artist. He was actually down in Brazil. I didn't know that. And I said, well, I'll give you free admittance to all 3 of my conferences. And he goes, well, thanks, but I'm in Brazil, but you can use it as the cover of your book. So I had the title. I had the picture. I didn't have my book yet. So what happened? Last year, I went to Roswell for the first time. I wanted to see the museum and everything. And, I'm making my notes. And I do this a lot on vacation. That's where I write my books. 3-4 times a day, I sit down for an hour and I write. And so I'm kind of getting my story together, but I'm saying, how do I tell this story? So I'm leaving Roswell. I'm pulling out. I'm going down the main street. There's a hitchhiker, this female hitchhiker. And I said, that's the story. You pick her up, and that's how you tell your story. She tells you everything that happened in our history. She's a hybrid, alien human. She knows what happened. And on the ride to Santa Fe for 3 hours, she tells you the story. Only thing is, it takes over 6 hours. So there's missing time. I think it's one of the coolest books out there. We stopped in this diner that's really on that road. I can't remember route, whatever it was, 178 heading to Santa Fe. Right in the middle of nowhere. There's like this ghost town where everything is closed down, the gas station, everything. This is brand new 1950s diner sitting there, with the black and white tiles and they're in the girls in these outfits and stuff. I'm saying, like, I felt like I went through a time tunnel, But it's the only thing sitting there in the middle of the desert, So, it's just a cool story where he's me. That's me. I'm falling back on religion, saying, wait a minute, I believe in God and I believe in Jesus, but, she's saying, not the God you think, they have always been here. They have been here since the beginning. It's them. They've influenced everything. Governments, leaders, the fallen angels, all of that, the offspring of these ET, the Nephilim, let's say, and their offspring were, these hybrids, Hercules, Samson, Apollo, Achilles. They're hybrids is what it is. So we go through the history of mankind. Remember the movie The 300?
Yep. Yes.
The Sparta. Well, how do 300 Greeks hold off 250,000 Persians? They were these hybrids. That's how they were able to do it. And we talk about, I asked her, well, with these cattle mutilations and all of that. And I said, what about human mutilations? When was the first human taken for mutilation? And she says to me, in modern times, 1888, Whitechapel, London. I said, Jack the Ripper? She goes, there was no Jack. That was them. If you remember when they took those women, they removed some of their organs, and same stuff that they do to cattle mutilations, they were doing to these women in London. That was a species doing the human mutilations, and we go through all of history, and so it's almost everything you thought about history. There's an alternative theory in there of how they interfered. They were behind it. So I think it's the coolest book out there. And the second half of the book is all the evidence for UFOs. So if you don't know anything about UFOs, there's 200 pages of evidence. I even document every important thing in ufology from the beginning in chronological order. There's like 190 paragraphs, bullet points that you need to know.
Excellent. So besides being this compelling story, there's also some knowledge to be gained on the UFO facts as well. Nice combination.
Well, even the story is, some things that you heard from ancient aliens, etc., theories like that. So it takes you through all of our history, how they helped certain civilizations. The Greeks had their time period, and they interceded with that. They wanted democracy to succeed, a republic, and then you had the Romans with their republic. Again, they helped it succeed. And even when you got to America, George Washington, they aided him at Valley Forge. It's in his diary. His diary says 3 times he met with green aliens at Valley Forge. He saw a glowing orb in the woods. There were green aliens. They gave him the British coordinates so he could get out of Valley Forge. That's in his diary. So that was them wanting democracy and freedom to succeed. And they sit back and they watch hundreds of years. But now, unfortunately, they're moving to China. That's this globalization. You see all our jobs, everything moving to China. They're trying a different, system right now. And the reason is they gave us a constitution and we are pulling away from it.
Absolutely.
And that's the reason they're pulling away from supporting us. They gave us a constitution and we're not honoring it. So now they're going to see what totalitarianism can do. Just like there was a species helping Hitler. And that's the thing people have to remember when they say, oh, it's ET. Well, there's not just one. There's many species out there, and they're even fighting, and there's a conflict here. We're caught in the middle. We're at this, this gateway of these other, dimensions and worlds, and we're right at the interconnection of that. So, when people say, are they hostile? Are they here to help? Are they here to observe? The answer is yes to all of that, because there's more than one species.
It's just an amazing subject. I mean, it's one of those subjects, John, that, you could sit down and talk about for hours and just barely scratch the surface. There's just so much information out there and stories and theories, and it boggles the mind sometimes. So your new book is out right now, right? It's been released?
Yeah, it was a couple of months ago. It's on Kindle and Nook, and you can get the hard copy at Amazon also. But, if you get it from my website, johnventre.com, it's an autographed copy that I send you. So, yeah, it's been out for a couple of months. Yeah. And, doing these type of radio shows helps. I did Coast to Coast, and I had a huge pick up in sales right after Coast to Coast. So that was cool.
Absolutely. So when did you do Coast to Coast?
That was end of May. I did it with George Knapp because he was going to be, he's one of the speakers at the symposium in July, so he wanted to do a show. And I said, well, let's talk about my book. I've never been on Coast to Coast. I've asked, but they've never asked me back. So, asked me to be on. So, that was the only big radio show that I had never done was Coast to Coast. And I did 2 conferences with George Norrie, gave him my card, told him, I'm a pretty interesting guy. And yet they never called me. It wasn't until just May, a couple of months ago, that they asked me to be on. George Knapp's cool. I like George Knapp.
I really like George Knapp, too. I really do. I think he could do his own radio show and be the main host and do it very well. I like listening to him. He definitely looks into things. He, tries to get the facts. And, yeah, I agree with you. Great guy. Great guy.
Yeah.
Well, listen, John, we're just about out of time here, but I just want to mention again for the viewers out there, you can catch John on Hangar 1. Season 2 has been picked up, as well as if you're in the Philadelphia area, you can get him on. What's the channel up there? For your local television?
It's actually Pittsburgh. It's
Pittsburgh.
PCTV, Pittsburgh Community Television. And on my Facebook and my website, I put a link to all the episodes. So you can watch those episodes, and they're really cool. You can watch them on the PCTV website. All 6 are going to be up probably within a week.
Oh, okay. Excellent. Well, I'll put that link up as well. Very cool. Very cool. Well, listen, John, thanks for stopping by tonight. With everything that you do, I appreciate you taking what little time you have left and coming here and talking with us tonight. So very much appreciated.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And have me back, and I'll tell you about my 4th TV show next year.
You got it. I'll be watching the emails. emails.
All right.
Thank you. John. Talk to you later.
Thanks. Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Answer is to keep it. You'll believe it when you find something screaming across your mind. Green slime.
And you may have seen him recently on his latest television endeavor, the Hangar 1 series on the History Channel. I haven't got to speak to John about this particular series. The last time he was here, I believe they were still in contract negotiations and just trying to tie up the loose ends. So I have a few questions about the show. I really like the show, personally. On top of that, he's got a new book out entitled An Alternative History of Mankind. And Welcome, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Topic UFO. My name is Rick Schooler, and I will be your host for the next 30 to 40 minutes. Tonight, we have probably one of the hardest working men in ufology. He's been on the show before. I'm sure if you don't know a lot about the book, I believe it's just come out recently. And we'll be talking to him about that as well. So just a ton of different things we'll be talking to him about tonight. So don't go away. It'll be an interesting conversation for sure. We'll be right back after this quick message.
Looks like a suitcase. Oh, feels like it's full of bricks. Well, actually, it's a 1925 RCA portable radio. That is, if you can call something that weighs 57 pounds portable.
I've been into ufology for at least a year or more. You know who this person is. You've seen him on television. You've read his books, what have you. Tonight, we're going to be speaking to Mr. John Ventre. And John is a combination of a UFO researcher, an author, a lecturer, a conference host. And then on top of all of that, he is the state director for MUFON in several state areas, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and Rhode Island. So he's got a huge area up there that he's involved